Hey guys, coming to you live from Theo's den. He's just getting nursed on my lap right now. Still feeling pretty unwell, so I'll do the live video while I'm here. Hopefully my voice puts him to sleep. Today someone asked in the group for me to do a little video about addictions, be it like food addictions, alcohol addictions, drug addictions, gambling, whatever it is. First, I want to start off by saying this is just my opinion and what worked for me. It might work for you, it might not. But what did work 100% for me was going to get professional help to start with. So with my alcohol abuse back in the day, back a long time ago now, I sought out help from a psychologist who helped me a ton to figure out how to handle the issues I was having to stop abusing my body with alcohol. So first up, go get professional help because it always works out better in the long run. And then now I'll just tell you a few ideas of what worked well for me. So the big thing that worked well at first, so the first step will be to figure out my triggers. So the triggers that cause me to go out and drink and to go out and do things like that. It could be the same for you. It could be triggers that make you eat certain foods which aren't in alignment with your best self. It could make you do drugs, go gambling, whatever. You need to figure out the emotional triggers that are causing you to do it. So for me, it was with alcohol. Something happened for me to want to go to alcohol and write myself off with it, to switch off whatever it is that caused the emotional trigger. So in the case of food as well, it could be something like something shit happens. Your immediate default is to go to a certain type of food that brings you joy or brings you happiness, because it's like ice cream. It gives you that quick feel goods in your brain, and basically you get that little release. But then you fall back into a dump again, and then you might go for another quick release and another quick release. It was the same with alcohol. I would use alcohol to shut off whatever the trigger was, the emotional thing that was going on, and have a good time. And then I'd go too far and get too drunk, and then wake up in the morning hungover, and then search for that release again, and you just keep going in a cycle. And that's how addiction works. You're usually escaping something in your life, whether it's emotional or whatever, and you're searching for something to make you feel better. And once you figure out what the triggers are, you can figure out steps. Like you can take the next step, which is figuring out the alternatives to what you're doing right now. So for me, it was alcohol was my answer to whatever the trigger was. I had to change. That was my default. Setting was always going to alcohol. So in my case, I had to change to physical fitness. And funnily enough, I'm an adrenaline junkie, and anything that gives me like an adrenaline rush is something that I just get gravitated towards. So I went from drinking to training very hard, and that was my new default. So when the triggers happened, I switched quickly to, instead of from doing drinking, I switched to doing training and any kind of movement, which was like a high intensity, to give me that same feeling I was getting from alcohol. It's not exactly the same, and it's always, like at first, it's a lot of practice and a lot of focused work to get the change. So you need to focus on, like I had to focus really hard on not drinking and focusing on moving on to a better alternative habit, which was physical fitness and better eating. And I had to have these little notes in my note on a card in my wallet, which was all the triggers. Like there was 5 triggers that were most common that kept coming up, and they're all the ones that rocked me the most. I had to have, if this happens here, I do this instead of this. And it was sort of like, if blah blah happens, I do physical fitness instead of going out and getting smashed. And just that's the start. And at first it feels like it's a lot of work, and then over time it becomes easier because it becomes a habit, and you create this new default. And that's what that's what I do with parents now. And back then I didn't have this analogy, but we're talking about that red light, yellow light, green light. Emotional triggers usually will hit you. It's like a red light scenario, and whatever your red light scenario is, whatever your default habits are, is what you'll go to when you get an emotional trigger. So if your default habits are eat that ice cream, smash that 6-pack of beer, scull that bottle of wine, do that drug, smoke that cigarette, whatever it is, you'll go to that default habit, and that's the red light default habits. And what we do in our coaching groups now is we figure out how to know what the triggers are, and set new defaults. So in the case of nutrition, we'll talk about nutrition, and your default habits are like eating ice cream, packets of chips, things that you just been doing for a long time and you haven't really thought about, but it gives you that emotional release. We try and make you aware of what you're doing first, and then we focus on building your new defaults, which it could be like eating protein first at every meal. So whatever you're going to eat, you have to search for a protein source first, and that helps you just sort of snap out of doing your reactive thing where you just go to eating whatever food you see that brings you joy, like whatever, ice cream. You look for the protein source first, and that slows it down, makes you aware, and it gets you to think about, is this action going to put me in line with my best version of myself? So if I have an emotional trigger, am I going to follow what I usually do, which takes me away from the best version of myself, or am I going to do this other thing which gets me closer to the best version of myself, which makes me happier long term, which would be to be a better person in the future, compared to getting a quick release and then an immediate drop in energy and an immediate drop in emotions again, where I have to cycle back and go to that shit thing, and you keep cycling on those bad habits. So what we're trying to do is get people aware first of what their triggers are, build in over time, like gradually build in these new defaults. So back then, back then, my default was drinking when an emotional trigger happens. Now my defaults are, first thing is like strength training. Like Theo's been sick lately, poor little guy, and we're not really sure what's happening with him yet. And we've been sort of under house arrest because he could be a little bit contagious. So my default when I'm in this red light zone is having my meals are just built around meat, veggies and fats, because I'm not able to train at the moment. So that's my new default compared to what it used to be when I used to just drink, because it's a very emotional time. Now it's just building good nutrition habits, and then strength training, which is like a simple thing like PLP, where you do push-ups, lunges and pull-ups every day, and you start with 1 rep and then work your way to 60 in consecutive days. And that's how you build new defaults. And it does take time, but anything that's good, anything that takes time stays with you longer. So if it takes a long time to get it, you will keep it for a longer term. So simple, same with fat loss. If it takes you longer to get the fat loss, you will keep it for longer. If you get fat loss really quick, it's really hard to keep it long term. That's where you get people who bounce around a lot. And that's why with this, say in the case of the Get Lean Nutrition Challenge we've got coming up, which you can sign up for, it's free, we're showing people the red light versions of nutrition. You can do all the fancy tactics when you got space, but when you're a red light like we are now, and Theo's been in hospital and we're sort of lacking sleep because he's not well, the red light versions of nutrition is basically like getting your protein at every meal, getting your veggies at every meal, getting quality fats at every meal, matching your carbohydrates to your movement, learning how to eat slowly if you can, and doing that 90% of the time. And that's what the Get Lean Challenge is going to be about, is teaching the red light versions of nutrition, which is the fundamentals over life. And that's what basically every nutrition plan you ever see is built around these fundamental nutrition habits. So just to recap, addictions, it's hard to get over addictions at first. Eventually, the more you practice at getting past them, the better you get, and the faster, like the easier it is to sort of not do them anymore. Like 6 years down the track from giving up alcohol, 6 years, 5 years down the track giving up alcohol, it's a lot easier. Like I don't even think about it anymore. It's not even in my thought process. It's just straight away I go to the things that make living my best version of myself. So it's training and nutrition and getting my sleep patterns as good as they can be. So recap, you need to figure out your triggers. So to get past addictions, even if we're talking about food, figure out the triggers that cause you to go eat these things. It could be anything that causes emotional stress could be a trigger for you to go eat a certain food. But we just need you to figure out what the triggers are and be aware of them. So when they happen, you know that it's happening. So it becomes a conscious thing, not an unconscious thing. And then 2, you need to figure out to create new default settings. So you need to figure out how to eat in a way that suits the best version of yourself and create that new normal. it will take time, and over time you will get better at it, and it will become easier. And at first, it's hard. Habits are hard, and changing habits is hard. That's why we do it in groups in our coaching community, and that's why we're doing the Get Lean Nutrition Challenge, because spreading the burden of trying to change habits over a group makes it much easier for you to accomplish. Sort of the same thing as like when with your kids, and some like we've had a massive import of people offering support and wanting to help us with what's going on with Theo, and just helping us as well by like cooking meals and just taking us out for coffee and stuff. The burden of like spreading the burden across the community makes it so much easier for you to accomplish things. So if you want to learn how to get past nutrition addictions and join a group of parents who are working towards being strong, fit and healthy, come join the Get Lean Nutrition Challenge. It's going to be awesome. I'll be in there coaching every day. It starts Wednesday. You're going to get a video every day in the app showing you how to eat to be lean. It's going to give you everything that we do. Basically, it's everything we do in our coaching programs. You're going to get it for free, and you get 10 days of coaching with that. So if you want to join up, jump in the comments below. The link is there. It's free. Sign up straight away. I hope this video helped you guys and gave you some ideas on how to get past addictions, and the simple way to do it is to create new defaults. So come join us in the Get Lean Nutrition Challenge and create some new defaults for your nutrition, so your fallback plan is in line with your best version of yourself. Alright guys, see ya. Theo says bye. See ya.